Welcome to New York Got Game.
Welcome back to another episode of New York Got Game. I hope everyone had themselves a fantastic Independence Day weekend as free agency news has slowed down and we get ready for Summer League action in Vegas later this week where the Knicks and Nets both will be playing. But for some teams in the W, including the Liberty, we're just over the halfway mark, and this week we're going to take a look at New York's pro women's hoop team, who currently has the best record in the league. So let's get right to it. All right, so the New York Liberty, they've played 21 games, and the vibes should be good as they are 17-4. They've got the best record in the league. But are the vibes really good coming off a loss to Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever? Should the Liberty be considered the favorites to win it all this year? Is Ellie the best mascot in professional sports? These are all questions that need to be answered, except for Ellie, because we already know what time it is, and Ellie holds it down at the Barclays Center. But we will answer these questions and much more with one of my favorite people to talk basketball with. You see her on NBC Sports as a contributor to On Her Turf, the one and only Natalie Esquire. What's going on, Nat?
Dexter, how are you?
I'm good. Your second time up here, but first time on New York Got Game. So yeah. Glad to have you here. How are you enjoying this W season thus far?
Oh, the W is great. It's been an incredible season, from the teams at the top to some of the rookies showing out. It's been an amazing season. I'm glad that for anyone who's new to the W, that this is the season that they get the chance to watch.
Yeah, no, I've been excited about it too. I know fans are. We talked a lot of Liberty on this show, and so we're going to get right into it, Nat. The Liberty. Yeah. They're off to a 17-4 start. When they started 17-3, that start was the best 20-game start in franchise history. How do you evaluate the Liberty's performance thus far this season through 21 games?
I mean, they're a very good team, so they, that's an expectation. I don't want to minimize what they're doing, but it's a very talented roster. They were just in the WNBA finals last year. You expect for them to be at the top of the standings. So to the chagrin of some Liberty fans, they don't like that they're not number one in my power rankings, but their start, actually they were a little rocky to start the season. Like, they were winning some games, but they were like in close games. The Chicago Sky beat them earlier in the season. But then they just sort of like their chemistry, they got some more cohesion. Jonquel Jones started playing out her mind. You just started seeing some other things, and they just look like a much better team. Like, they look like they're going to be one of the teams standing at the end.
Yeah, we're going to get to those power rankings because I've seen people try to come for you. Liberty fans, I've seen Liberty fans try to come for Nat in the power rankings where she didn't have them at one, even when they had one of the best records in the league. And we'll get to that about where you think they are and if they're worthy of their record. So let's go to this first. Saturday, we saw the Liberty fall to the Fever, where there could be some concerns because they blew an 11-point lead in the fourth quarter out in Naptown. When you look at that loss, two things. Were there any positive takeaways in your eyes for New York, or did you come away from that game saying, hey, I got more concerns about this team because they weren't able to finish down the stretch against a Fever team that they had beat pretty handily this season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't overreact to it. I wouldn't say, they got off to a slow start. I would say I'm probably going to be pointing out more negatives, but it's not because I'm like freaking out over the Liberty. The Liberty are a better team than the Indiana Fever. So they've won most of the games this season. It's not something to overreact to. Like, teams take their foot off the gas, and that's what they did. And you can't do that with a hungry, up-and-coming team like this that has so many talented players like Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark and so forth. But they just took their foot off the gas. I didn't love some of their execution to close. I thought they were hunting for the three a little bit. I didn't like that shot that Sabrina took. She made a deep three, so I get it, but I felt like they could have gotten something different. And she's been so good going downhill this year. And it either leads to her getting a bucket, maybe some free throws, or being able to kick it out to one of her teammates. So I would have preferred trying to get something closer at the rim. Could have gone to JJ maybe, or even Stewie, So I didn't love that, but it felt to me like a little bit of like reverting, to their old to her always specifically, I'm going to say, because she's talked about how much she's done to make sure that she's not just settling for threes this year. So I would have liked to see something different. But overall, obviously you don't want to give up an 11-point lead, right. But I don't think that's indicative of who they are.
Right. And there was, I think, a little bit too much hunting of the three in that game. They shot 23.8% from downtown. So the three wasn't falling. You're right. Maybe you can get a better shot there if you're Sabrina Ionescu, but we'll see. You're right. Can't freak out about that game. It's one game. They let their foot off the gas. So let's get back to the
They're still number one in the standings.
There they go. Number one in your power rankings?
No, but number one in the standings.
We'll get that there. All right, I got a two-part question here. What factors do you believe have contributed to the Liberty having the best record in the league through 21 games? And this is the thing, and this is where your power rankings come into play here. Is the team as good as their 17-4 record suggests?
Yeah, they are as good. The issue is not the Liberty or their record. It's that some of the other teams are better than their record suggests, right? So they are that good, and they have a very strong chance of getting back to the WNBA finals. And at this rate, they might even have home court if they were to make it throughout, because they have distance between them and the other teams. The Liberty, their record does make sense. I mean, they've had a mix of teams that they've played. They've played some of the top teams. They've played some of the lower seeded teams. But you know what? You see on any given night in the WNBA, any team can win, right? The Indiana Fever have a sub 500 record, and they still came back and they beat a team like the Liberty, right? So every night is competitive in the W for the most part. We've seen the Mystics challenge them and other teams, right? And they have one of the worst records in the league. So this is just what it is, but they've earned their record. They deserve their record. And you could see the changes and the strides that they've made throughout the season to become better and more cohesive. So I think their record makes perfect sense.
All right, record makes perfect sense. 17-4, as I said, through 21 games. Liberty, best record in the league right now. Now, head coach Sandy Brondello, she's recently had to integrate Courtney Vandersloot back into the lineup. Natalie Hamilton also back into the lineup. And there's been some talk among fans about what's the best lineup for this team to close games. Who do you believe are the best 5 women that the Liberty should look to close games as they move forward in the second half of the season and towards the postseason?
Look, I think, I think it's understandable why you may want to still stick with Sloot, right? Like, she's one of your starters, and she's had a lot to go through this season, so you may want to give her time to see. But, their backcourt is not the strongest defensively with Sloot and Sabrina. So I think a better lineup probably, and I think this is the one a lot of fans are talking about, are if you have Stewie, if you have Sabrina, if you have Jonquel, you have Benijah, and you add Kayla Thornton into there, so KT. And that gives them a much better defensive lineup. It gives them a lot of versatility, flexibility. So it's a really good lineup, and it's been positive. That lineup, first of all, if KT keeps hitting these threes the way she's hitting them, it makes such a difference. It opens up so much more for them, and it allows them to just really make teams pay for leaving her open. Because, what are you going to do? You have Sabrina, you have Stewie, right? And Jonquel's hitting them sometimes. Benijah hits them. That just, all 5 players on the court who can knock down a three, whether it's open or even sometimes contested, that's a really dangerous lineup.
And see, I like that lineup because I like having another plus defender on the floor in KT, right? I really like that. But then, like you said, with the way KT's been shooting the ball this season, and she's been tremendous, especially from the corner, the way you can spread the floor, the way you can defend on the other end. And I'm thinking long term, when they play a team like the Aces that has great guard play, you need superior defense, especially on the perimeter. And that's why I like that closing lineup. So I'm with you on that. I like the closing lineup. Will we see it? I don't know. A lot of fans, I think another point you made that's really good is a lot of fans talk about, who's going to start? We know this. We love basketball. Sometimes it's not really about who starts. It's about who's closing these games, and we'll see who's closing these games for the Liberty. Now, 17-4, we know that. But I think like anything in life, we know there's always room for improvement, right? So, and growth in anything that we do. So what areas of improvement do you see for the Liberty that they need to work on in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think one, just not to fall back into old habits. So like I said, I thought there was a lot of settling for the three. Don't do that. Like, especially someone like Sabrina, you've worked so hard to get your game to be more versatile, right? To be more of a threat, not just with your 3-point shot. And so not to fall into old habits, not to settle, but to continue to attack because it opens up things for her teammates. I love when Stewie is aggressive, especially if her shot isn't falling. So she should continue to do that. Continuing to keep Jonquel engaged. They're just a different team when she's playing, like her MVP self. And when that's happening, they're pretty unbeatable, right? Like they really are. And so you have to keep Jonquel Jones engaged in that way. And then I would like to see them, particularly against teams that they should beat, like the Indiana Fever, to get off to a much better start. Like stop having these teams hang around, like, or, knock them in the teeth.
Yeah,
but, when you first get there, and I get it that it was an away game and you were on the road, but like you are the better team. You are the better team. You're the more talented team. I think you need to like get off to better starts and sort of set the tone, because and I know it's a game of runs and all of that, blah, blah, blah. But if you punch them in the mouth early, you kind of take their life early. And I think you need to demonstrate that you're that kind of team, right? I think the reason why people hold teams like the Aces, I'm one of them, in such high regard is because that is what they have done for the past 2 years, especially like last year. They just come in, they beat you, they dominate. It's, like they beat most teams by like double digits. Like the games aren't close, and I get sometimes it doesn't always start like that, but I'm just saying they really go in and like dominate teams. And I think for me, that's what's always given me a little pause about the Liberty in terms of like how I rank them. So I would like to see them exert their dominance of the team that I think they can be.
No, I get that. You don't want to see them play with their food, right? This is what you have. Go out, take care of business. The other thing I want to follow up on you, we talked about this after the Commissioner's Cup game, because you mentioned them getting Jonquel Jones more involved. And we've seen a couple of games, that Commissioner's Cup game, 3 shot attempts for Jonquel. Saturday, against the Fever, 5 shot attempts for Jonquel Jones. Is that a major concern for you when you see a lot of that where she's not involved? And is it a product of the defenses on these other teams playing her differently? Or, I think you had mentioned this to me when we were talking after the Commissioner's Cup game, they have to get her involved in the offense earlier, get her the ball earlier in the shot clock. What is it for you? Are you giving credit to the defenses, or is this the Liberty, you got to be more focused on getting her the ball earlier in the shot clock?
I mean, yeah, you can give some credit to the defense, but and I love Aaliyah Boston, but they're like, Aaliyah's gonna give someone like Jonquel some problems, but like she's like, Jonquel Jones can battle with Aaliyah Boston, with Melissa Smith, whoever's in the paint. Like she can do that. I mean, she was giving Asia Wilson problems last year, so like. She can do it. She can handle it. So
it's a byproduct of them just getting her the ball and letting her do her thing.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And I don't think we need to get too happy with her, like taking the 3. She can knock them down, but let her do what she does.
Which is feast in the post.
Yeah.
No, makes sense there. Keeping it in the second half, when you look at the schedule in the second half of the season, what are some key matchups that you really have your eye on in terms of upcoming games for the Liberty? Some teams you're really looking forward to seeing them play against in the second half of the season?
The Connecticut Sun for sure. I feel like the Liberty seem to have their number.
Won 8 out of the last 9 games against them, yeah.
Yeah, but like last year they were injured and stuff like that.
Fair.
So, but like this year, but it was still a close game. But the Connecticut's offense is always concerning, and I don't know. And like defense wins championships. Yes, I know their defense is incredible, but I don't know if for an entire series if they really could beat the Liberty. So I want to see that matchup again and see. I definitely am interested in the Chicago Sky games they have coming up as well. I think like the Fever, the Liberty are a better team than the Chicago Sky, but there have been some things that have changed about the Chicago Sky since they've last played. Obviously, they lost Elizabeth Williams. That was a big loss, but Kennedy Carter is now starting, and she should have been an all-star. She's putting up incredible numbers. The duo of Barbie and Ken, Angel Reese and Kennedy, has been incredible together. You also have Camila Cardozo back. She was out earlier in the season. She's getting more comfortable with reps. Like, she is a rookie, but like they say, you cannot teach 6'7". So that it's another thing too, just like with the Fever. The Fever were able to do what they did because they are much better than when the Liberty played them in the past. So I don't think either of these teams are better than the Liberty, but the Chicago Sky have already beaten the Liberty in the preseason and the regular season, right? So they've done it. They know they can beat this team. So, I would like to see those matchups and see how they do against the Sky team. And I think it's more of a litmus test for the Sky, but they cannot sleep on this Sky team.
Right, you can't sleep on them, and that's a great point you make, too, because you're right, teams are not the same as when you saw them 4 or 5 weeks ago. Those teams have grown. Those rookies have grown. They've gotten more familiar with the W, and they've been really good. Okay, so those are some good matchups in terms
one
of
more,
teams.
though, the Aces.
You got one more. Oh, Aces, of course.
They're playing the Aces soon in August, and of course, we want to see those two teams. They played the Aces earlier in the season. Sans Chelsea Gray. That matters. That matters a lot. So I'm sorry, Liberty fans. Until you beat the intact Aces in a way that is convincing, I still think the Aces are the better team.
It's interesting because the Liberty, after that win over the Aces, said that was a big win for them. And I do think that it was to some degree. But I also do agree with you on this. It's like, yeah, but we need to see you do it with the point guard. We need to see you do it against her on the floor there. And they've been obviously integrating Chelsea back in there. And so let me ask you this, because I think fans are going to want to know this in terms of your power rankings. Mm-hmm. We get to August. Liberty play the Aces, and the Liberty win that game. Mm-hmm. Is that the game of the season that'll really have you impressed with the Liberty, where you're like, okay, they've shown me something here? Yeah, I had to ask. I had to ask. Is that the moment where people, because if it happens, they're gonna come on social media and say, hey, Nat, they beat the Aces. You've had the Aces at the top. You've been respecting the work they've done. If the Liberty, or are you a person who looks at it this way? That's cool. But you got to do it when it counts in the postseason.
Yeah, and I mean, the Aces aren't the only team I had above the Liberty.
This is true.
So here's the thing. It's not just like winning a single game, because you got to win a series. I don't think the Aces are unbeatable, but I think it would be important for New York to have home court, for sure. And so if they can keep that, that will be really key. But we don't know what's going to happen. Like, we don't know if the win-losses are going to get closer. Right now, the Aces have a stretch coming up against a bunch of teams that are not the strongest, right? So this is a chance for them to sort of up their win record and, build some momentum and build some cohesion, right? And so it's not so much just winning, because if you barely win that game and it's close, like, that's what I said about the Sun. There was a time where I had ranked the Sun ahead of the Liberty still, because it was like, that game was close. I didn't walk away thinking one team was better than the other. Like, the Liberty finally just beat the Lynx. I still think the Lynx are the better team. They've won 2 of the matchups, and they won them decisively. And then this last game was close, right? I've seen the Lynx beat the Liberty handily, right? I've seen Nafisa Collier give Brianna Stewart some problems. So that's what I'm saying. It's not just like, oh, you get the W, right? Because when you're playing a series and you guys know each other's habits, it's one thing to win a game, right, and it's one thing to win a series.
Right.
So it's, so can they do something to overcome? It's not just going to be a game. It's going to be their body of work. Are they starting to dominate teams? Are they looking like the superior team, right? I do think they're the top 3 teams, right? I think it's Aces, Lynx, and Liberty. I know the Lynx have just dropped a few games, and Collier might, her injury.
Right.
But intact, I'm saying intact, not with injuries. Intact with each of these 3 teams, I think they're the top 3 teams. And when I do my power rankings,
this is why I asked,
I put them in tiers.
You do.
So it's not just like, people really shouldn't be that up in arms about them, because I put them all in the contender tier.
Right. And the reason I asked you to explain that was just so people could hear your thought process in this. And if they don't know, Nat is right. When she does her, she puts these in tiers so she know who's contenders, who's kind of on that next level playoff team. Forgetting exactly how you categorize it, but those are the ways, and this is how you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
This all ties into the next question I have, and you might have somewhat answered this. But when you look at the league right now, who do you think, because people say, okay, the Liberty are at the top, but who poses the biggest threat to them in the postseason that you worry about them if you're a Liberty fan? Okay, this team can knock them off. I'm sure you're going to say the Aces because you have a lot of respect for the Aces, as you should. Is Minnesota, based on what they've done, are they also the biggest threat with the Aces to the Liberty?
Yeah, I mean, if Nafisa is back and they're healthy, for sure. So that's another one where I think home court's going to matter. But, I mean, I guess we can't really say the Commissioner's Cup was home court. The Commissioner's Cup is so interesting because it didn't take place in Barclays,
right,
and it doesn't count in the record. So it doesn't count, but it happened.
We saw it.
Right. We all watched it. Right. So we know that they can come in and win a game where the crowd is favoring the Liberty, right? It wasn't in Barclays, but we saw them do it.
But it was a road game for them.
Right.
Fair enough.
So, you know, they should definitely want to make sure that they have home court. That would be a very close matchup, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I think the two biggest threats are the Aces and the Lynx. And I think for the Liberty have gone into Vegas and won before. They have. But I think having home court would be really critical for them in winning a series versus either of those two teams.
Yeah, it seems like it should be a big focus for them down the stretch of this season to get home court so that they can have it if they get to the finals, the WNBA finals. We'll see what happens. Now, you talk about Liberty. They've only had 4 losses this season. But when they had one stretch early in the season where they lost back-to-back games. One of those were to the Lynx. They've shown the ability to bounce back after losses this season. And this week, I wanted to look at some matchups for people. They visit the Sun, team that Nat talked about. Then they're home for 2 games with the Sky, matchups that you're really excited to see. What are you going to keep your eye on with this Liberty team this week as they look to bounce back from Saturday's loss?
Yeah, I mean, I expect them to be fine. You know, Connecticut is playing a little bit better. They went on like a little skid. Where they lost like 3 or 4 games, and then now they seem to have gotten their mojo back. But their offense, like I said, is always what you pay attention to. So they're going to be going into Connecticut. They can win there, you know, but it's just that their defense is tough, right? So it's really making sure that you don't let Connecticut get going offensively. Because I think if you can contain them, I don't think their offense can match. I don't think their offense can match the Liberty's. And the Liberty do have a very good defense. But their defense, like Dejanay Carrington, she's going to be knocking that ball out. She's going to steal. Like, they have a lot to worry about in that matchup. So it's just really, if they can, I think it's more about if their defense can contain the offense of the Sun, I think the Liberty win that game. And then for the Sky, like I said, it's just really more so, I want to see now with Camilla in the lineup, with Kennedy. Listen, there was a clip floating around on social, okay, with Sue Bird talking about Kennedy Carter and not wanting to guard her and how unguardable she is.
She gets up in you. She'll get up in.
Yes, and again, I'm not trying to disrespect Caitlin Clark, but putting Benaja on Caitlin Clark is very different than trying to put her on like a quick guard, you know, like a Kennedy. And who you're going to put Sabrina on her? I mean, like that. She's now starting for them. It poses a much different matchup issue. And then also Angel Reese is playing so much better. She's on a double-double streak, as you know. Her finishing around the rim has improved, you know, drastically ever since she had her conversation with Tina Charles and she told her to be more patient, you know, around the rim. So she's taking her time. She's getting more comfortable, you know, and she's not afraid to bang.
No,
she's not afraid to bang. So.
And the thing I'm looking for is funny in those Sky games. We're on the same wavelength with this, and we'll probably be there to see those games. Is that, yes, like you said, this is not the same team. This is not the same Sky team. If the Liberty are going to play to the championship level that they think they can play at, well, they can't sleep on the teams, like Nat said. So that'll be a good test. If you get up for Connecticut on Wednesday, but then Thursday when you have a back-to-back at the Barclays and you play down to your competition, it's not going to be a good look. So we'll see how they handle it. It's an interesting week. Last thing I got for you. This season, coming into the season, the Aces came in as the odds-on favorite to win the title again this year, as I think you and I would agree that they should have been with the team that they were returning. Mm-hmm. Considering the Liberty's start to the season, we've got 19 more games left at the time of us recording this in the regular season. Should they, the Liberty, be the current favorites to win the 2024 WNBA title?
Absolutely. Like, what are we doing? I'm sorry. Like, we're just not going to overthink this. Like, I don't care about the Liberty being a 500 team, essentially, or struggling when the best point guard in the WNBA, yes, the best point guard, the point god, was out. She makes such a huge difference for their team, not just offensively, but also defensively. She's a big guard. You know what I'm saying? Like, until they it's funny because all the top teams lost to lower ranked teams. So it was like crazy. You had Seattle, you had the Liberty, you had the Aces, right? So they did just drop a game, but they went into that on a 6-game win streak. They had the largest win streak in the league. They had not lost a game since Chelsea Gray returned. It's an insane amount that they win her minutes on the court versus other teams. I mean, she's just a huge difference maker. And then Asia Wilson is the best player in the world. She's playing like the best player in the world. There's no more, her and Stewart. No, she's a better player than Breanna Stewart at this stage of their careers.
So your whole thing is don't overthink this. The Aces were the favorite coming to the season. Forget what their record is. Even though you've seen the Liberty go 17 out of 21, Aces should still be the favorite here.
They should. Like, they're the favorites. They should be the favorite. And that's why the Liberty need to get that home court advantage and hold on to it.
And it's funny, I was going to go there. If they get the home court advantage, Nat, or dare I say, in the final 19 games, I don't know, let's say the Liberty only dropped 2 more. And let's say when the games you see them play the Aces, they look really good. I don't want to say dominant, but they look really good to execute well down the stretch. Would that then shift the odds for you, and would that make the Liberty the favorite? Or no matter what, going into the playoffs, you're still going to have the Aces as a favorite here?
No, it's not a no matter what. Like, obviously, the Aces, their defense has not been as good this year.
It hasn't. Right.
And a lot of that is, like, you had some games that Jackie Young missed, and she was ill, and then you had Chelsea Gray out of the lineup for a long time. So, but with her return, their defense has also improved. So their defense in these last, several games has been much better. It's been a top 5 defense. But if you just look at it over the course of the season, it's not. Right? And so they're still working in their new pieces. Like, their bench pieces are different. And so they have some things to figure out. Like, they're just not the starting 5, that unit is cohesive, but as a whole squad, the entirety, they're not. So they have some things to work out. And it's about seeing, like, I expect them to get it together. This is also something that championship teams go through. It's like, it's not easy to three-peat. It's not easy to play at that level night in, night out, every day, and come in and knowing every team wants to beat you. Every team wants to give you their best shot because you were the Aces. And also, other teams have improved. They have gotten better, right? It's another year of the Liberty together. They've improved. They have another year of playing together and developing chemistry, right? You have the Connecticut Sun, who got some pieces back. You have upcoming teams like the Lynx, the Storm are still out there. We're not sure yet what to make of them. So people are coming for that throne, right? So I have to see someone dethrone them. But if they keep looking shaky throughout the season, then I might have to say, hold up.
Yeah, you might have to adjust.
Right.
See, I just want to let the people know how you're thinking through this, how the thought process here. Some people are out there getting mad about your rankings and where the Liberty should be. Look, I think we both agree on this. Liberty, fantastic team. They're building chemistry. They have the continuity. They should be there in the end. But you got to execute right now. There's still a lot of work. 19 games left in the regular season. We'll see what happens in the postseason. But look, at the halfway point of the season, we're just past it. Liberty in a good spot, 17-4.
Very good spot.
They're in a very good spot. They're in a very good spot. She is Natalie Esquire. Check out her work. NBC Sports, On Her Turf, contributor for them. Love talking basketball with you.
Likewise.
Sister, it's always great to do it. And it was great to have you here because it is National Black Women in Sports Day as we are recording this. So I thought it was perfect to have you here as one of the black women in this space that I just love to talk hoops with. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Again, everybody, check out her work. Nat, we'll have to have you back up here on New York Got Game.
Thank you.
Anytime. Okay, so we move on to Summer League action this week. As I mentioned earlier, the Knickerbockers, they tip off their Summer League schedule in Vegas on Saturday, July 13th, when they play the Hornets. As for the Nets, they get things started a day early on the 12th when they battle the Pacers. All right, it's time to bounce. Thank you to my guest, Natalie Esquire. A big thank you to the people who made this episode and this show possible. My producer, Lee Insler, editors Jim Valver and Catherine Cooper, along with director Zach Taub. I'm Dexter Henry, and I'll see you next time on New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.